All right, let's go ahead and call this, whoa, that's really loud. Thank you. I'd officially like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting of December 5th, 2024, the last meeting of the year, and let the record reflect that Commissioner Barajas is absent and all other commissioners are present. I'd like to ask Commissioner Fuentes to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. That brings us to presentation items. Item 1 is Capital Improvement Plan Update, and this is the time for the presentation. And Assistant Director Amy Stonich, I think I just introduced the item, so if you have anything else to introduce, otherwise we'll kick it over to, I'm not sure her name.
Nazma Koram will do
Thank
our
you, ma'am.
presentation for us this evening.
Yep, the floor is all yours, ma'am. Thanks.
Good evening, Commission members. I'm back here today to provide you with an update on our capital improvement program. As you're aware, we had 68 CIP projects budgeted. 2 projects were added mid-cycle, so we have a total of 70 CIP budgeted and planned for improving the beautiful city of Lake Forest. So as usual, let's start with good news, major projects that have been completed since the last update. Zone A slurry seal is now complete. Notice of completion, or NOC, was approved by Council on Tuesday. Lake Forest Drive resurfacing from Portola to Bake included asphalt repairs and resurfacing. It also added green paint bike lanes to provide more awareness in the conflict zones. The Ascension left turn holding pocket modified an existing median on Trabuco Road to create an acceleration lane for cars exiting Ascension Cemetery. And Rimgate Park shade structure renovation is complete. Other projects completed earlier in 2024 are listed here, and we have the list of projects completed in 2023. We presented these in more details in the previous CIP updates to you. In summary, 13 projects are completed in 2023. 11 more projects are completed in 2024 to date, and that puts us at a total of 24 CIP projects completed from our program. Now, moving to projects under construction. Geronimo and Muirlands arterial slurry seal started in September and will be completed this month. Installation of new street name signs is completed in Zone A and Zone B neighborhoods, and our contractor is working on Zone C as of now. Trabuco Road resurfacing from Bake to Peachwood is also substantially complete, and we are working on the punch list items. Trabuco Trail actually runs parallel to Trabuco Road from Peachwood to Paso Sombra, and our trail rehabilitation started in July and is substantially complete. We are also working on closeout for this one. Other projects in construction that we have include Civic Center drainage improvements, which is almost complete. Lake Forest TSSP, you may have noticed the construction crew along Lake Forest Drive. Alton TSSP and Portola Santa Margarita TSSP are right now in procurement phase, so we anticipate having a construction crew in the field sometime in 2025. Pittsburgh Park shade structure renovation, we have a contractor on board. We are coordinating with them closely to get the repairs done. They have some challenges so far, so they're a little behind the schedule. Conference room Teams upgrade is currently ongoing throughout the campus here. And Rockfield Median at Lake Forest Drive, construction started in October and is substantially complete, and we're in closeout phase for this one as well. We awarded 3 contracts for Lifton projects in August. Lifton is the Lake Forest Transportation Mitigation program. And we had the pre-con meetings in October, and currently we are working with the contractor on the construction schedule and the long lead items procurement. Now that citywide annual park sidewalk repairs are complete, staff is working on citywide annual street sidewalk repairs. Council awarded a contract in September, construction started in October, and we substantially completed in November. We are we are in a closeout phase for this project as well. So, as you see, we have a number of major projects that we are getting close to the end of construction, and we are happy about the progress we made. Now, moving to projects in pre-construction. Zone D asphalt repairs was awarded in November, and we're going to have a pre-con meeting next Monday, actually. So this project is moving to construction. Big Trabuco widening, bids were opened in November. We are scheduling the award in January. And El Toro Irrigation Conservation Program, Council awarded this project on Tuesday. For the protected permissive left turn, we had this being presented to Council in November. Their direction was that we put this project on hold and they reevaluate in 2026 after Alton TSSP is completed. So that will drop off our list at the moment. And then Barker Ranch Dog Park synthetic turf replacement, the contract is ready, and we started construction actually this week. And we're working on the contract for Heroes Park lighting. We have 4 projects within the same stretch of El Toro Road. So we are anticipating bundling these for construction the same way we did for Trabuco Road projects to increase efficiency, take advantage of economy of scale, and also minimize inconvenience for the resident as much as possible. CACI services for these projects were advertised, and we opened proposals in November, and we are currently evaluating them. With that, we move to projects in design. So we have 7 park improvements projects in various phases of design that I've listed here. We also, on the street improvement side, we are working on design of arterial wall enhancement in Southwest Lake Forest, and we are working on our pavement management plan update. We also have multiple slurry seal and street surfacing projects in design. These are mainly to have them design ready for future CIP years. They are not budgeted for construction. And we are also working on 5 projects, which one of their main benefits would be the traffic improvement for our residents. Staff is also working to develop a work order software system using the city's existing ArcGIS platform. We initiated some field tests within this quarter with our street maintenance contractor, electrical maintenance contractor, and park and facility maintenance contractor. The software will allow staff to track work done by our contractors on our citywide assets. We anticipate to have a second phase for this project to include asset condition and inspection capabilities. Our community services staff is also working on an RFP for conceptual design of Etnies skate park improvements. The scope of work will include community outreach workshops, report compiling feedback with the potential of an all-wheels park, and developing the conceptual design. Once the conceptual design is complete, a design phase will be initiated to prepare plans and specs for construction. And we also have another 8 projects on our list lined up, so as we get some of the ongoing projects completed and off our list, we will initiate these. So these are the upcoming projects. So in summary, we completed 24 projects. We have 14 projects in different phases of construction. 10 projects are in pre-construction, and 13 projects are currently in design. This concludes my report. Thank you for your time, and I'm available for any questions.
All right, thank you. And seeing that there's no members from the public, I'm assuming we have no blue cards. So I will bring it back to the commission to see if any of my colleagues have any comments or questions for staff.
I have a question for you. Have you seen a significant increase in the cost of paving at this point when you resurface the streets, say over the last 2 years? Has the price gone up significantly?
Yes, it is. And that's something that we are going to address it with our current pavement management update program that we are working on. We've seen a significant increase in costs. So one of the things we are looking at is if we need additional budget to be able to continue with our street resurfacing program. Another thing that we are looking at the moment is on our residential streets, because we have the slurry seal that we do annually, and we go back to every residential street within 7 years to really slurry the streets. We are doing very well with pavement condition, and one of the things we are looking at is maybe with some of the larger zones, we can divide them into 2 years and make that program 9-year program, because we are doing already very well, so a lot of our streets don't even need the slurry seal. So that will free up a little bit of the budget so we can make sure our arterial streets also get enough pavement.
So has your cost gone up 30%, 40%? I've heard it's gone up a lot,
Yes, it's around that range.
in the 40% range?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, have been gone up very considerably since prior to COVID.
I understand it didn't help when they shut down the asphalt plant in Irvine.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Do we bid those asphalt projects, those construction projects, every phase, or do we do it for the entire city and it's the same contractor?
We do for every project. So for slurry seal, the neighborhood, when we have the package ready, then we advertise them, and the contractor will bid for them.
Okay.
For our arterial streets, for instance, as you saw for Trabuco, we did it from Peachwood to Bake, because that was the part that had the most potholes. Or Lake Forest, we again prioritized between Portola to Bake because of the issues we had there.
Okay. And then I just wanted to commend you guys for the street signs. We went from like 1991 to 2024, which was amazing.
Yeah.
They look really, really nice.
Thank you.
Also, I know a lot of my friends that live down off Trabuco and Peachwood area are celebrating there's no construction down there for a little bit because there was a lot going down. It was like a war zone for a while. So hopefully they can enjoy the trail now and the knife pays and the median and all that stuff. Also, I wanted to say Trabuco and Bake. Man, that's been, since I was on the traffic commission, something that's been talked about. I know we had to, get some public right-of-ways and do all this stuff to get it done, but luckily I don't go up that way anymore. I didn't have to fight the traffic, but I know the people that do are going to enjoy when it's finally done, and
Yes.
definitely appreciate our persistence in getting that moving forward. But does anyone else have any comments? Yeah.
So at El Toro and Trabuco, in front of the grocery store there, what's the status on that? There just seems to be a lot of construction going on.
El Toro and Trabuco.
On Trabuco.
So that's a water pipeline. It's not the city's project. I
IRWD?
believe it's MWD. They are replacing their water main, and it's going to be ongoing for several months, but it's for our resident, basically making sure we don't have a pipe break later on.
So several months it'll continue.
Yes, I believe it's going to go at least till February.
Oh,
Yeah.
and have some unhappy neighbors, but I'll say it with a smile, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're good, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, this is the time for public comments. I'm not going to read this whole thing since I see nobody from the public, so I am assuming, Madam Commission Secretary, we have not received any speaker cards, correct?
I have not received any.
Wonderful. This brings us to the consent calendar. This is the time for the commission to consider matters listed under the consent calendar. Have we received any comments from the public on the consent calendar?
None received.
Wonderful. Do any commissioners wish to discuss this item, or is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
A second.
Please vote.
The motion passes 4-0 with Commissioner Barajas absent.
Thank you. I'll now open the public hearing for item number 3, and Assistant Director Amy Stonich will introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. This is a zoning code amendment, city initiated, and it would amend various sections of the zoning code. Planners Jennifer Manser and Connor Mesler will provide a presentation.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. This item tonight is a new zoning code amendment. As you probably recall at our last meeting, we provided the presentation with some information on the history of the city zoning code and gave you a little preview for this zoning code amendment. We also provided the draft zoning code amendments at that meeting to give you enough time to review this pretty lengthy document. I'm going to start this presentation by briefly explaining how we came up for the content for this zoning code amendment. Over the past few years, the city's planners have maintained kind of a wish list of potential zoning code amendments. The list is based on recurring inquiries and experiences the planners have had communicating code requirements with the public. So this zoning code amendment is an accumulation of these recommended code amendments based on the planners' actual experiences working with the zoning code. As we discussed at the last meeting, our zoning code is pretty outdated, and the Community Development Department does intend to propose a more comprehensive zoning code update in the future. I'll do this. It never works for me. Oh, did I do too many times now? The proposed zoning code amendment includes changes to 24 different sections of the zoning code. Due to the large number of amendments in the proposed ordinance, we have categorized the amendments into 4 different categories: clarifications, conformance with state law, residential zoning district consistency, and the promotion of economic development. Are you doing it for me? Okay. The first category is clarifications. In this category, we have changed the definition section of the zoning code. We're adding 3 new definitions, removing 2 obsolete definitions, and modifying 5 definitions. For example, we've added definitions for patio, enclosed patio, and commercial assembly uses. We're also modifying a few definitions to make them a little more clear, including habitable room and personal care services. The code amendment also fixes a few clerical and consistency errors. As you know, not that long ago, we adopted a new zoning, mixed-use zoning districts, and we found a few typos in that section. For example, it said light night use, so it meant late night use. We also had an FAR that was typed incorrectly, and so all of these issues have been fixed in this amendment. We've also codified some long-standing policies in the code. For example, the city has always had a policy that allowed outdoor restaurant seating up to 16 seats without any additional parking. This zoning code amendment will codify that policy, and that will allow our restaurants to have outdoor seating areas in shopping centers that don't have any extra parking, which is most of our shopping centers. In the zoning code amendment, we also added some new graphics and tables to clarify some of our more confusing code sections. Thank you. The 2 best examples are going to be some fence graphics that were created and our parking garage regulations. As shown on the screen, we have 2 new fence graphics. One shows the distance requirement between walls, and one showing how the fence height for a retaining wall is measured. We also took a very confusing garage size regulation and created a table to make it a lot simpler for residents. The next category is consistency with state law. We only had 1 amendment in this category. We are removing a code section related to signage and redevelopment areas. In 2012, the state actually dissolved all redevelopment agencies and basically rendering this code section obsolete, so we're removing it. And now Connor's going to talk about the next 2 categories.
So for this category, the residential zoning district consistency, the biggest change that you probably remember from the last meeting was our regulations for accessory structures, and looking to change that to make it a little bit more consistent between our different residential zoning districts, reorganizing the existing section to make it a little bit more logical, updating the regulations where they are more applicable towards structures we're seeing more and more today, and then setting the setback regulations on the structure itself, not necessarily just the height. The other change for zoning district consistency is our lot coverage for residential single-family zoning districts, changing that from 35% to 60%, which is more in line with the rest of our residential zoning districts. These are the same pictures as last time, just showing some of those accessory structures that we're seeing more and more of, with fireplaces, TV walls, California rooms, and things like that. And this is how we're proposing to modify the accessory structure section by expanding the different types of structures that are regulated. So we're not adding any new subsections, we're just reorganizing and removing what maybe isn't as applicable, such as the satellite dishes, the miscellaneous accessory structures, and making them more specific towards certain structures. And then basing that setback, as I mentioned, on the structure itself, not just the zoning district. This is the current regulations. This figure, again, shows the current setbacks, which is based on the underlying zoning, ranging from 25 feet down to 5 feet. What this would cause is if you wanted to put a shed in your backyard, it's going to be in the middle of your yard at the 25-foot setback versus the 5-foot one in the Baker Ranch planned community. And this is how we're proposing to modify it, setting it as a standard 5 feet across the board. For promoting economic development, some of the changes we're proposing is permitting animal clinics by right, removing the need to obtain that administrative site development permit and codifying those regulations within our zoning code that we typically look for with animal clinics, such as trash pickup, animal waste, noise, sound attenuation, things like that. Allowing daycare centers in A1 zones where many of our churches are located. Adding parking stall designation signs that have become more and more popular for curbside pickup, so they don't have to go through a planned sign program process if they meet the height and size requirements, and then modifying our parking requirements. The biggest one is setting one standard for offices. Currently, it sets different standards for different offices, ranging from one space for every 250 to one space for every 150, with the more intense parking requirement for medical offices and veterinary clinics. We're proposing to make that just one set standard of one for every 250. Reducing the parking ratio for dance studios, gyms, and martial arts studios from one space for every 150 to one space for every 200. That's more in line with what you see in our shopping centers, so that expands the areas where they're allowed to go. And then creating a new parking standard for personal care services. Instead of basing it on more antiquated methods of per barber chair, per beautician station, it's just going to be based on the same square footage ratio of one space for every 250. That would potentially allow them to be allowed to operate in some office complexes and things like that if they are permitted. And then these are just some pictures that you saw last time showing some different businesses, some different signs within the city that would, probably benefit from this code. So the next steps, if you guys do approve this tonight, it would go before the City Council for a public hearing on January 21st, 2025, for their consideration for adoption. With that, we're available for any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Connor. Thanks, Jennifer. Seeing no members of the public, I'm assuming we have no public comments.
None received.
Wonderful. And I'll bring that back to the commission to ask my colleagues to see if they have any questions for staff. I have one, Connor. Oh, sorry. No, you can go, sir. Okay. I just had a question on the animal clinics. Can you bring it back to that slide if possible? And maybe articulate a little bit, is that like they're allowed to be in certain zones?
Sure, go ahead.
So currently, yeah, they're allowed in the commercial zones, and we require an administrative site development permit. So it's just by staff level. But we've realized they're very simple admin SDPs, and we're asking for the same things every time. So it's, do you have, we have noise criteria, do you have your permit, and do you have like waste management of, the little baggies, basically. So instead of having them go through a whole process for that, we just put them into the code. So now someone can come get a TI at the counter, and we'll just check those requirements over the counter instead of going through a 1 to 2 month process.
Got it. So this will make it a little more efficient, but it's also not going to allow them in like residential zones.
Right, yeah, it's still based on we didn't change where they were allowed, just made the process easier where they were allowed.
Okay, go ahead, Julie.
Does that make it less expensive for the applicant?
Yes. I mean, the SDP process isn't super expensive, but there's a cost involved, so yeah, they wouldn't need to do that.
Does this have any impact, Amy, on, I know we chatted about a animal hospital that was built up in Foothill Ranch area, and kind of the building official that required above standard for medical facilities, even though it was a veterinarian. Does this have any impact on that, or is this simply just permitting?
As Jennifer mentioned, they would still be subject to the code, both the zoning code and the building code, and those were likely building code requirements.
Yeah, if it is construction, right? So
Right.
it would have that requirement. Okay,
Right,
this is just the permit piece.
correct.
Commissioner Stander, did you have something?
I just have a few questions. I have a question about, well, I'm looking at the one that you gave me last time with the red lines. So I'm on page 2, and it says a patio, and it describes a trellis. Is a trellis simply a typical trellis that just goes up against the wall? And is that considered a patio?
Yeah, so in this case, the trellis would be like those wood-built structures with the non-solid roof on top that either is attached or detached from your residence,
Like a pergola?
not like a standing-up trellis.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I looked at it. Okay, perfect. Just a couple other things. Let me get to my pages.
Do you have one of those, Commissioners?
I have a pergola. I do, actually.
Just
That's why
one.
I was like, what the heck?
Well, yeah, there
Has
were
it
the
been
me-
approved?
Yeah, we're going to do a measuring tape after this.
I'm
Can you
not going.
go
on
out
record-
there?
Not going on record with anything about that. Thank you. Happy to talk to you afterwards, however. If you have a waiver, that would be wonderful. I'm joking. On page 6, we have a question. Page 6 at the top, there's 2 and 4, and number 2 speaks to a rear yard setback of 3 feet. And then on number 4, it also talks to a rear yard setback of the main building or 5 feet? Is that,
Yes, so you're talking about the patio cover one?
I'm talking about page 6 at the top, which is
For
patio covers, yes, sir.
Yes. So it's differentiating between a interior side yard setback and a side yard that abuts a street. So if you're a corner lot, in this case, it would be that 5-foot setback, but if between you and your neighbor, it would be that 3-foot setback.
For the rear yard, correct?
Correct, yeah. So if you're a rear ends, a double frontage lot, as they call it, it would be the 5 feet.
Okay, thank you. It was a bit confusing for me, so sorry. I would if I was you. I'd actually send a crew over now. I believe code enforcement works nights at times now. I'll skip that one. So I'm curious because on the same page, we talk about the street side. And is street side different than a front yard that's on page 8? And just looking at terms and definitions,
We're off by one.
8B, A1.
Yes. So the difference between front yard and street side, yes. So in this case, the street side would be talking about your street side yard or your street rear yard. Front yard would be its own separate.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm almost done. Or maybe I am. Oh, on page 18, where it says down to bottom 19 parking stall designation signs. And where it says the maximum number is the maximum number is the minimum number necessary to provide adequate information. Whose discretion is that at?
Which one was it that you were looking at again?
I was looking at page 18 at the very bottom. Parking stalls, number 19, page 18, item 19, in the development standards at the bottom.
Oh, our packet is off by a page from you. Okay, we're on 19.
It would be at the planner's discretion, but it's pretty, if you have a parking stall designation sign, if you have a pickup space, then you would have one. So if you have 5 pickup spaces, you can have 5 signs,
Okay.
basically, what is meant to say.
I'm going to forego my question on car washes.
Car washes.
You answered that question already during your presentation, and I have nothing more. Thank you.
Vice Chair Ludden, did you have anything?
I was curious, do any of these code changes affect ADUs in the city?
No, so all the ADUs have their own separate code section. Any amendments to that would be processed separately, and those amendments would be subject to HCD state review.
Okay, I was just curious if any of that affected any of what we were doing with that. Okay, thank you.
Connor, on ADUs, I know that's not in this section, but have we gone forward with the template plans that are now available for individuals to utilize?
It's a good one. Amy, do you know anything about that?
Yes, I'll speak to that. We are working with OCOG to put together plans, standard plans, and we have worked with them to update our website, both in conformance with the HCD requirements and our city code.
And do we have like more than 10 ADUs that have been permitted?
Oh, yes,
We do have a lot.
to date, yes.
Okay.
I mean, since our first ADU ordinance, we have, we're tracking a list, and so it is definitely more than several dozen
Okay.
at this point.
Cool. Thank you. Did you have something else, Julie?
So Jennifer, over the years, I've heard you say, well, we don't have parking requirements for this type of development. Are we not going to hear that from you anymore?
I mean, we can't have a parking regulation for every use.
But this will help.
I think this will help a little bit, yeah.
Great.
I do like a lot of those modifications. I know it, like you guys have been battling this being outdated for quite some time, and this doesn't always make sense, and you try to draw reference to what is in there to align with whatever's coming before the counter. So hopefully this allows a little bit more clarity and a little bit more reasonable for the businesses to come in too. So did we, when we were developing this, as well as the setbacks, and Connor, Jennifer, did we like look to neighboring cities to see what their zoning codes are allowed, or is this just modern with times, or how did we look at that?
Did a lot of research into this. So we looked at our sister jurisdictions who kind of incorporated from the county and how they've updated since their incorporation. Found a lot of better ways to do things. So for example, like the accessory structures regulation was kind of taken as a hybrid from Mission Viejo and Aliso Viejo and tailored more towards Lake Forest's needs. A lot of the setbacks we kind of took when looking at our planned communities and seeing which one had the least most intense ratio. So we're trying to not create any non-conforming structures. So in the case of like patio covers, 5 feet or 3 feet, those tend to be the magic numbers when dealing with things, 3s and 5s. So we tried to set it at what was the most least intense ratio based on what we have currently in our planned communities and our similar jurisdictions nearby.
And that just makes it easier, so we don't have to list it as a non-conforming structure.
Correct, yeah.
If they were to do any other future modifications.
Correct. So that if someone were to come in and say, I have a patio cover and it's 0 or who knows what, and we did something crazy and it cause an issue for them down the road, yeah.
And did we do this as well with the parking requirements? As far as looking at the sister cities?
You know, we did look at the sister cities, but actually a lot of them were similar to what we have now. We didn't find, or else we probably would have presented it if all the cities had something a little bit stronger, but a lot of them still had that 1 to 150, at least the cities around us.
Did we look at our brother cities or just our sister cities?
Only sister
Okay.
cities.
Got it. Makes sense. All right. With that, I will bring it back to the commission to see if anyone has a motion.
Make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
I'll second.
All right, let's vote.
That motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Barajas absent.
Thank you. This brings us to director comments. Amy?
Thank you, Chair. I have no comments.
Mr. City Attorney, you've been quiet over there today. Is everything all right?
Everything is good. Glad to
Okay.
be here.
Thank you. All right, Planning Commission comments. Commissioner Fuentes.
Well, I just want to thank you for that presentation and all the hard work that went into revitalizing our ability for, I think, our residents to come in and get what they
what they should have. And I would wish everybody a happy and holy holiday.
Thank you, Commissioner Standard.
Thank you. Yeah, I echo those sentiments. I think that, again, I'll say like I did last time, in our last meeting, excuse me, that it was great to get the information in advance and have time to review it and kind of learn about it, especially in something that this has a little depth to it and a lot of detail. And everything the presentation was excellent. I appreciated that as well. And I'm excited for this to be rolled out. When will it roll out? Right after the next potential, I understand it needs to be approved by the city council, so I would assume that would be next, hopefully January?
Yeah, we're thinking January 21st.
And then-
It has to have a first reading, a second reading, and then usually it's 30 days after that.
Okay,
So March.
it's wonderful. Great job, thank you.
Vice Chair Ludden.
I was quite impressed after I read the work that you did. I mean, you did a lot of detailed work there, and you really be highly commended for what you did there. I think I'm glad to see that we're looking forward to do these kinds of things to make it easier for our residents to grow and develop in the city, and I think that that's really good. And the fact that you're continuing to work on this program and move on to other areas in the code, I think that's exceptional. And the advanced information was very helpful because there was a lot to read and understand. So you presented it very well, and I really commend the staff for an excellent job and the desire to do this work and to improve our city. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. You know, sometimes I can be the critic up here, but I have to say, amazing job. I am a proponent for efficient government and performance management, and I think hiring the right individuals that have that innovation to want to make processes better and to not just come to work every day and, well, it says I have to do 1, 2, 3, and to write stuff down and bring it back when it makes sense. I think we should do this more often. I know it's a pain, but maybe every few years rather than waiting so long, because I think the people that are going to benefit are our residents and the businesses that are coming in here, to being more efficient, making it simpler where it makes sense. Making those parking restrictions align a little bit better, and just continuous improvement. I think that's what one of our roles as public servants is. So I commend you guys for doing that, and I would welcome it, hopefully again, before you guys kick me completely off the commission. But with that, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving, and we will see everybody in the new year. And our next regular meeting is scheduled for January 9th, and this meeting is adjourned.